Pleased to be joined now, though, by senior producer from NFL Films and co-host of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show, Greg Cosell, whose weekly segment is presented by Scott Lawnyard, an official commercial site work partner of the Buffalo Bills. All right, Greg, so I went back and looked at Baltimore's last defeat, which was at the hands of the Eagles, who I know you see an awful lot of. And can I just chalk up the Eagles outlasting the Ravens because they have a gigantic set of human beings on defense? Is that the main reason we're talking about here? What did you attribute to Philadelphia essentially outlasting Baltimore? Because I don't think Philadelphia played their best offensive game by any means.
No, and I don't know if that game is, to be honest with you, Brownies, that relevant to this game, because I think the teams are totally different. So I'm not sure that matters a lot for this particular game. The Eagles' offense, to me, is nothing. The quarterbacks are totally different. I mean, Jalen Hurts is nothing like Josh Allen. I think that's not really. I'm just being honest. I don't think that matters a lot. I think to me, I kind of look at the teams as what they are. Not their last loss or their. I'm trying to evaluate the teams and how I think they'll match up in this game.
Right. Do you? Because I'm looking at the last 8 games when the Ravens defense has really, kind of improved themselves to a great degree, going to the top pass defense in football over the last 8 weeks of the season. But mixed in there, you've got Cleveland twice, the Giants with Drew Lock or whoever they had in the lineup that week.
Right.
I mean, I'm trying to take it with a grain of salt here. I have all the respect in the world for Baltimore's defense, but I mean, they rocketed to the top of the league playing some also ran football teams.
Yeah, but I think when you look at their defense, a couple of things stand out. They're very big up front, and particularly on the inside. They've got a lot of people up front whose first digit starts with 3. That raises one of the questions in this game. Clearly, we saw last week that the coaching staff of the Bills felt they could line up and run the football against the Broncos. Because, you talk about James Cook, he had 13 for 78 in the first half. 9 of those 13 runs came on first down. I think they played Anderson on 10 snaps in the first half. So they clearly felt as they game planned to play the Broncos that they could line up, play physical power football, and run the ball. So the question is, against this particular defensive front with the Ravens, where they do have big people in the middle, will they feel that they have to take the same approach? Can they take the same approach, or do they need to be a little more aggressive with pass? And when I say that, I don't mean throw the ball, 30 yards down the field, but just be a little more aggressive in terms of their run-pass ratio and maybe throw the ball a little more. And I think that's one of the questions in this game. Of course, there's many, but, to me, that's one of the questions as I look at this matchup, given that the Ravens are very good against the run and they have a lot of big people inside.
All right, so concerning Buffalo's run game, though, they ran a lot of different run play variations last week, including true I formation with Reggie Gilliam. They ran some pitch or toss, whatever you want to call it, with Cook. And I'm thinking with a big defensive line like that, you'd want to go pitch and get them moving laterally rather than trying to penetrate upfield. What do you think of that approach with Buffalo's run game?
You can certainly take that approach, but I also think that you're dealing with a defense that's pretty fast, and fairly rangy. So, I think the key thing is the point you made about being multiple with what you do in the run game. I think that's really, really important. You don't want to, run the same kinds of plays. I guess the question is, do we feel that the Bills, in order to be successful in this game, have to really run the ball at a high level? I mean, that's really the question, because not many teams have done that against Baltimore. So if the Bills, let me pose it this way, and because this is what I've been thinking about. Let's say the Bills come out and feel like, hey, we have a really good O-line. It's been strong all year. It's been a foundation of what we do on offense. We're going to come out and we're going to play quote-unquote Bills football, and then through 2 series, they can't run the ball. Then what happens? Do they stay with
So
it,
take
assuming the score is still, 3-0, let's say, or 3-3? Or do they feel like it's time for plan B and we need to maybe, work the passing game in a little more?
so taking that a step further, if they get to plan B, knowing what the Ravens' weaknesses are on defense, I know there's not many. Who on Buffalo's offense do you see being targeted a good amount, the potential of having a good game based on how the Ravens' defense plays?
Well, then it comes down to personnel that the Bills have on the field because when the Ravens are in their base defense, the left corner is Humphrey and the right corner is Stevens. When they go to their nickel, the Humphrey moves inside to the slot and Wiggins, the rookie, plays left corner. Stevens, the right corner, would be viewed as the weak link in the coverage department. So again, however, and they don't switch sides, they don't match up. So you know where he's going to be. He's going to be the right corner. So you can decide who you want to put out there to match up to Stevens. But as Brownie pointed out, they've gotten a lot better on the back end since they made the switch week 11 to make Kyle Hamilton essentially a safety. And another player that's been really, really good for them is our Darius Washington. He's been a really good player over these last 5 or 6 weeks. He's the other safety. So, they've become a good defense. But I think if you're thinking pass game, the right corner Stevens is more than likely the one you'll want to attack.
What do you make of Joe Brady's bunch formations, tight to the line?
Yeah.
It seems to have created confusion with coverage assignments. It certainly did last week for the Broncos. It has earlier in the season as well. Do you think it can catch Baltimore a couple of times with that kind of scheming?
Yes. I mean, obviously, it's a matter of what the coverage is in given situations. It's funny you mentioned that, Brownie, because the piece I did in the matchup show this week was the Samuel touchdown, and which was one of the best just in terms of getting into the weeds of what game planning is and what motion does and what bunch does was as good a play as I've seen and one I really loved breaking down. Now, that was a 3rd and 6 play and the Broncos were in man coverage, but it was bunch and they went 4 strong as well because what they did is they shifted Ty Johnson to the side of the 3 receiver bunch. And they actually caught Surtain. Surtain was the one who got stuck on that play because they were playing man, but they were also playing releases. So the question is, what are the situations in which they're going to get man? I did some research, and our matchup team here did some research. And for instance, 3rd and 6 to 9, the Ravens this year have played almost 50% man coverage. Now, assuming they stay with what they've done all year, again, this is what coaches do. This is what staffs do. They look at all this stuff and then see how they want to attack in given situations. And obviously, that particular play was a great example of understanding what they were going to get and breaking it down. You need to be able to do that against the Ravens because you're not necessarily going to get a ton of opportunities.
Flipping it to Buffalo's defense, when you look at what the Ravens are successful at doing on offense, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are a big part of that. And comparing it to how Buffalo's defense plays, in your opinion, with the tape that you've watched this week, what is the recipe to slowing down that offense when it comes to how Buffalo's defense plays?
Yeah, this is a tough matchup because, one thing that the Ravens did last week, which they hadn't really done all year, and again, we don't know if they'll do it this week. They could, is they played 16 snaps with 6 offensive linemen. That's not something they had done very much. So, if at all. So they had a lot of big people, and we know that the Bills play nickel pretty much every snap. Now, does that change this week? That's another question in this game because one thing about the Ravens is they play with a lot of big people. And is Zay Flowers likely to be out again, Brownie? Do you know?
He didn't practice again today, so I would say it's trending towards him not playing, but we'll have to wait and see.
Given that, last week in their game against the Steelers, they only played with 3 wide receivers on the field on 8 snaps. They played basically base offensive personnel in one form or another the entire game. So they put a lot of big people on the field. There were times they had 6 offensive linemen, Ricard, and 2 tight ends. So the question is, when you're playing them, what do you do on defense? Are you staying with your nickel? Do you then go to three linebackers? Are you trying to match their size? Yet they still have tremendous speed. That's the problem you face with them, because obviously Derrick Henry, who we're looking at here, he has tremendous speed, but so does Lamar Jackson. So their combination of speed and size and power is a really difficult one to play against. And I'm really anxious to see what the Bills are going to do in terms of the personnel they put out there. What's your sense of that? Do you think we're gonna see Dorian Williams play more snaps this week and more of a 4-3?
Yeah, I think they're going to try to counter the personnel with bigger personnel. And, Dorian Williams isn't Taron Johnson in terms of speed, but he's probably the fastest linebacker on the roster. And back in week 4, when they didn't have Bernard, Milano, or Taron Johnson in the lineup,
Correct.
and Taylor Rapp went out with a head injury, they played 3 linebackers on 30% of the snaps. So They did it in week 4. I would anticipate they do it again.
I would think
it's
so.
not
as
like
well.
it's a foreign concept. We know their nickel is their bread and butter. We know that. But I don't think it's far-fetched to think that they're going to use base defense a heavy amount, especially if they go jumbo.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And then that just raises the question then, and you're right. Fortunately, Dorian Williams can run because, as I said, not only are the Ravens powerful, but they're fast, and then you get to the pass game, which, is could well be tight end based because Zay Flowers appears to be out again. So it could well be tight end based. They play a lot of snaps with 2 tight ends, some with 3 tight ends. And then you have the Lamar factor. We saw, you mentioned that Milano did not play week 4, but last week, and they used Milano quite a bit as a spy on Bo Nix. It's very possible you could see that again. I mean, I think they're going to do that. I think they are going to spy on Lamar. That's situational, obviously. That's not something you're going to see, 50 times, but I think situationally you will see that.
I asked Ryan Fitzpatrick about this just a segment ago, but interested to hear your opinion as well. What do you believe this game comes down to?
I mean, if I would, my guess is, and again, I don't know how weather impacts it. That's impossible for me to know. So I'm going to pretend that the weather's not a factor in the game. I think the Bills are going to have to score, and they've scored all year, but I don't see this game, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you guys disagree. I don't see this as a 17-13 game. I think the Bills offense is going to have to be able to sustain and score. I think, because look, up to this point in the season, it's been really hard to stop the Ravens. They're very difficult to play against. Now teams, have stopped them. I think you need to be able to stop the run game first and foremost. That's really who they are. They've had a lot of games this year where Lamar Jackson has only thrown 20 or 21 balls, but he's, rushed 14 times for 89 yards. And whether they're design runs or whether they're scrambles, I think that's such a critical piece of this game. I think the Bills, there needs to be some explosive plays. I think this is a hard defense to go 12 plays, 85 yards on a consistent basis. Maybe I'm wrong. Hope I am. But, I think that they're going to need to create some explosive plays in this game.
All right, Greg, it's going to be fun to watch it for sure.
I know, I can't wait. It's the last game on Sunday night, and we're actually supposed to get snow here. So, it'll be snowing here, and I'll be watching that. And of course, it'll be snowing during the Eagles game too, which is the early game Sunday here in Philly. But I'm really looking forward to this. This is the one for me for this weekend. The one I'm most excited about.
Yeah, it's a headliner for everybody. Enjoy it, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks.